Browns training camp is done. Injury update, our final preseason game with, if you can believe it, starters playing. Starters are playing. What does that mean? What should we be looking for? And the 2024 opponent preview series continues with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you know I got something to say about that. Let's start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Andy Mcnamara, the sickest Cleveland Browns podcast.
Chubb runs, he's to the 10, 15, he's to the 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. There goes Chubb, he's to the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown, Jabba Lubba Hub.
It's gonna be sick.
Hello, everybody. Welcome, Sick Podcast with Andy Mcnamara. Yeah, training camp, it's done. It's done. We made it, if you can believe it. We made it. Not unscathed did the Browns, though. My goodness. We will get to the litany of injuries coming up. Make sure you are clicking subscribe to the show. Notifications on. Leave a comment. Let me know you're concerned about the injuries. What are you looking for in this final preseason game where Deshaun Watson and starters are going to play? For how long? We don't know. And let me know your feeling heading into this last preseason game and on the season overall. Leave the comments. Give us a follow on X, on Twitter, at SickPodBrowns, at AndyMC81, Instagram and TikTok, at AndyMCSports. Make sure you're following along there. I'll get to my preview of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And for once, going the last couple of years, doesn't seem like that good news. So I'm really looking forward to breaking down the Steelers and seeing what they've been up to and all about what we should be looking for. That'll be a little bit later on. But there is some news coming out of camp today. So let's bring on friend of show, return to the show, Noah Weisskopf from the Orange and Brown Report. Noah, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you, Andy?
I'm doing well, buddy. I'm doing well. Now, look, let's get to the news of the day. Pierre Strong, there's been some floating around reports. He was upper body injury. He was with a trainer taken off by ambulance. What do you know?
Yeah, so the update that Kevin had given us post-practice was that it was a rib injury, precautionary, taken to a local hospital and just further evaluation. So the hope is that he's all good, but just wanted to be completely sure. At first, upper body injury, you don't know what to expect. Could be a variety of things, but luckily, I guess for the sake, rib injury should be okay. But further testing still underway.
Okay, well like you said, you hear upper body. Is it chest pains? You don't want a concussion. Upper bodies could be anything. So okay. Yeah. Rib on paper, not too bad. Hopefully Pierre Strong is okay and gets back sooner than later, because I want to look at this running back depth chart for the Browns here with you, Noah, because it's a little concerning. And Pierre Strong actually was, and hopefully he doesn't miss any time, but is being counted on to a certain degree to come through and be a contributor in this committee with the vagueness of when Nick Chubb will return and at what capacity he'll return. Because right now we got Jerome Ford, Pierre Strong with a rib, and Donta Foreman. What's kind of sort of your vibe of this running back group?
Yeah, I think Pierre Strong is pretty important just in terms of his acceleration is something that I think he's the quickest player maybe on this entire team in terms of acceleration. His ability to accelerate down the field is special, and they value that in the return game, and he's been taking reps back there at return. So that could be a hole, especially with Nyheim Hines, waiting to see what happens with him and his impact and what he's able to do in the return game. So probably wait and see with both of those guys, make sure that Pierre Strong is good to go. But other than that, Aiden Robbins is a guy that he scored in the first preseason game. It was the only touchdown for Cleveland, and it almost feels as if the Browns are trying to hide him a little bit and not work him too much so he can clear waivers and then rejoin this team on the practice squad and sort of seem like that John Kelly type guy, stick around. So it almost feels as if they're hiding him a little bit. His build can be really effective in this league. He's a big dude, tough to bring down. And so he was really, really productive at BYU, coming out of BYU. So, this guy has a lot of potential, and I think they're trying to hide him a little bit, but obvious concerns for the run game without Nick Chubb, right? We saw it last year, the second most of last year, trying to figure that out. Jerome Ford's going to be the featured back and until Nick gets back eventually. But obvious issues with the offensive line right now, injuries. So the question mark remains at running back and the rushing attack in general.
Right. Well, so Aiden Robbins, okay, big guy, somebody to keep our eye on if he plays in the final preseason game. Built like more of a power back. Like, what are we like not speed, like straightforward? Can he catch?
Yeah, he's a big dude. Improving in pass protection can get you over the goal line if you're at the one. So a big power back that can move. I mean, he can move too.
That can move. All right. And Donta Foreman, we know, is going to be in rotation, probably at least a more proven version of that power guy. You need those 2 yards, almost a little bit, not as, I guess, to me anyway, athletic as a Kareem Hunt, but more of that. All right, you need 2 and he'll get you 2.5, and just kind of punch it in there. And I wonder too, Noah, with this run game, and we know it's going to be super pass heavy with the Dorsey offense and even with Kevin Stefanski calling the plays. I wonder if we see more of the extended run play, those short little passes. I harken back to when I was at the Browns game when they played the Titans and put the boots to them. Sorry, Sammy. And they absolutely destroyed them. And you saw Deshaun Watson connect with Jerome Ford. I can still picture in my mind, like, gorgeous, over-the-top extension. And I'm guessing – because it is more difficult from that shotgun spot to get any of the true momentum, do you think we'll see more of an extended running game? Kind of, okay, it's not a run, but it's a quick little dump.
There's been a ton of checkdowns so far throughout camp. I don't know if that's credit to the defense for throwing them and then forcing the quarterback to then check down. But there have been a lot of checkdowns, whether that's tight ends in the flat or running backs running to the flat. But yes, there have been a bunch of checkdowns. And I think the most important thing is they want the running backs to be involved in the passing game, whether that's in pass protection, which has been really emphasized to a lot of these guys, and also, in just the rushing game. They want them to be involved. And I know everyone keeps talking about this passing game's evolving. They're going to be all pass, but they need this running game to go. If they don't have a running game, the season's going to get turned upside down. So they need to be able to run the ball efficiently, and that will open up more in the pass game. But run game, they need to be able to be efficient.
To do something. And I guess with Stefanski, like when it was assumed that Dorsey was going to call plays, I was thinking, all right, it's every play's out of shotgun. And maybe it still will be. But man, you just can't get the same effectiveness if you're out of shotgun with the run. You just don't. Like it just isn't unless you're doing those quick tosses. So I wonder with Stefanski calling plays, is it going to be more of a conglomeration of, okay, we'll do more, but sometimes you're under center. But then again, if you're under center and every time you run, you're tipping your hand. Like that's going to kind of be the interesting part. And we haven't seen, I guess, obviously, any tip of the hand of what this offense really is going to look like, right?
They're going to be in shotgun more than they were in the past. That's not a secret, but they will still be under center to run the ball. They're going to run the ball out of the shotgun as well, but they want to have as many receivers out of the shotgun that they can, right? They want Amari, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, David Njoku to all be guys going out to catch passes from Deshaun. So they want to get this passing game going, but again, they need to be able to have a rushing attack to complement it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And you touched on it a little bit earlier. Part of the rushing attack, part of the pass protection, and why maybe they're focusing on these running backs, making sure they are improving in pass protection, is because that offensive line, the middle's great. Guard, center guard, A-okay. Right tackle, is DeJuan Jones going to start the season? Looks like I think it's leaning that way. But left tackle, oh my gosh, no, we saw everybody go down, right? Like there's only one man standing now, I think, right? Like it seems like a disaster.
Yeah, and I know everyone is keeping their eye on Deshaun and excited for him to play, but I would hold the brakes a little bit on that. I'm not sure and wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't play Friday or Saturday. Kevin Stefanski had said last week that was the plan, re-emphasized that multiple times, and then sort of took a step back yesterday and said they're going to sort of reevaluate this, and admitted it seemed as if, this offensive line situation is going to play a part in that. If they have no healthy offensive linemen, they don't want to throw Deshaun back there and get him into hits and having him take hits. I mean, they don't want, the last thing they want to do is force him into this game, a preseason game, get him hit back there, lose some confidence, get injured, re-injure something. So they're going to be careful. And he participated in practice for the first little bit, but that was it. He sat out most of practice. Jameis Winston took a majority of the first reps there. And Kevin Stefanski said after practice that it was some shoulder soreness. So another thing to monitor in addition to this offensive line situation. So not positive that he's going to play Saturday anymore, but we'll have to wait and see and we can probably expect an announcement at some point later this week to see if he'll be out there.
So he said shoulder soreness for Deshaun.
I'll get the exact quote for you, but yeah, it was some sort of precautionary, just didn't want to throw him the whole time out there at practice. It was general arm soreness. I'm sorry, not shoulder. General arm soreness was the quote he used today to describe why Deshaun was not a full go. And Lord. Like I said, participated at the beginning. Jameis Winston took a majority of the reps.
Oh, Noah. I can't do it. I can't go through more arm soreness, shoulder stuff with Deshaun. Oh my Lord. Can we just have a string where he's healthy and good? Oh my gosh. So, okay. All right. Look, I would be disappointed if he didn't play. I understand the thinking. You don't want him to get whacked if you're not confident in your left tackle, who I believe right now would be Jermaine Ifedi. Is that right? And he's not even 100%, I don't think.
Right. Yeah, he was banged up last weekend in the game, had a hand injury. I think a finger, to be more specific. He's okay. But yeah, they lost a lot of guys last weekend. They lost Hakeem Adenji's going to be out a little bit here. Yeah. But I do understand he avoided a pretty serious injury, I was told. So luckily, I guess for him, he's going to be okay at some point. And then, I mean,
James Hudson,
who is not going to be available this weekend. And then, I mean, Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin remain out of practice, and we'll have to see with them as well.
That Jed Wills injury is baffling because remember last year in November when it happened, it was game to game, week to week. Yeah, he'll be back. We won't. Okay, now he's not back. All right, now he needs to start, but it's a little surgery. And now we're at the end of August, and this is the last preseason game. And now it's like, boy, I know fans and myself included have never been really excited about Jed Wills, but man, he's going to get a hero's welcome if he can come back for week one with how things are set up now, right? Like this is concerning. And we've even heard sort of some optimism of Stefanski. Do you get any vibe? Like, do you think he'll be ready for week one? Just kind of your best guess?
It's tough to say. It really is. And at this point, it doesn't look like it. We're done now at this point with training camp, at least open to fans. They've got a preseason game, and then they're into basically a bye week, and then the regular season kicks off, and he hasn't even practiced. So we'll have to wait and see. It is definitely interesting. Kevin hasn't really given us a status other than he's progressing throughout camp. So it's really, really unclear. It was interesting because at the start of camp, we all sort of talked about, the Browns have 3 offensive tackles that can start, and there's going to have to be one that's not going to be able to. At this point, you're needing another starter. DeJuan Jones is healthy, will likely start week one. And, I wouldn't be surprised if Jack Conklin is on the PUP list to start the season. So I don't think he'll be ready. So we'll see if Jedrick Wills is going to be able to be out there. If not, they're going to have to see and evaluate this weekend and into the bye week, what they want to do with that position. I know we mentioned at press conferences, Joel Bitonio, would he be able to kick out to left tackle until someone's healthy? We don't know. So we're just going to have to wait and see.
Right. And great news that DeJuan Jones should be able to start. Because look, that guy is a rookie, sensational. Like that's one of Andrew Berry's best draft picks. If not, if for value, that's right up there. If not number one, that's right there. You get a starting right tackle in the 5th round. Sensational job by AB there. So if DeJuan Jones is in there, I'm feeling good. Know about the rest of the line, but left tackle is the most important spot. So to me, what that says is, okay, if it's not Jed Wills starting, then you're going to have to be sacrificing and make sure you have your running back as the extra chip. Maybe you slide over, who is it? Ricci, the fullback. Maybe you have it. Like you essentially, I think you're going to have to sacrifice maybe a pass catching body to make sure on that left side, you're protecting Deshaun, because we know he likes to improvise and he gets tackled. And if we got arm soreness.
And I will tell you that Giovanni Ricci actually is going to be out a couple weeks because he was injured and left the stadium. I remember seeing him walk out. So him and Adenji both had a big leg wrap on their respective knee with crutches. So he will be out a couple weeks. I don't know if he'll be ready for week one either. So they got some figuring out to do.
Oh, no.
I know.
Help. Oh, I need some of our buddies at Cleveland Whiskey. I got the empty bottle here. I need a fresh one. Oh, my Lord. Okay. All right. So in some fashion, maybe an extra tight end. Someone's going to have to help. And look, James Hudson, I'm sure he's a nice guy. I thought he was terrible at right tackle. I think he's even worse at left tackle. I have zero confidence in James Hudson, and he's not going to be able to play anyway. I feel the best thing would be, is it ideal for Joel Bitonio? No, but my God, would I rather take a Pro Bowl guard and possible future Hall of Famer and give it a shot at left tackle where he's played one game before? I would. And because then you have a bit of guard depth, right? Michael Dunn's done a great job in relief before. I'd feel fine with Michael Dunn. Who else do we got? Zach Zintner. I know he's been playing a little bit in practice at left guard. So like with mainly Zintner, actually, I haven't heard much about him offensive line, but is Zintner, I know, highly touted prospect and drafted. Has he looked good? Do you get any vibe off of him?
Zach Zintner has been solid. He's almost seen, I mean, at Michigan, he was sort of that veteran type presence and a captain for them. So the Browns really valued that. And for him to be able to, step in at any point this season, he's done it before. He's done it at a high level. Michigan's run game was explosive last year. And so they're confident, very, very confident in him. I know you brought up Michael Dunn, and that's another guy who has not been practicing recently. So there's a lot of these guys who have not been practicing recently, and their offensive line depth is getting very, very skinny. So maybe they make another move for a guy they've worked out recently. We'll see what happens. It'll be really interesting to see what they do Saturday for this preseason game to rotate guys. I mean, I know they have Lorenzo Thompson has been getting time, an undrafted guy. So he's been looking decent and getting continuous reps. So, maybe more experience will help him come along. But yeah, I mean, injuries are the storyline here. Yeah,
and you brought Nick Harris back, so that's nice. Familiar face. I wouldn't be surprised if we see post cuts. Andrew Berry bring in or try to trade for someone just before the cuts to bring in, because you have to deepen it up. But as it stands now, for me, and I want to know what the viewers think too. Leave comments. Hit us up on social, on Twitter. X at SickPod Browns, at AndyMC81. What do you want to do with this offensive line spot? What do you want to do with it? I would say if Jed Wills can't go, I'd put Joel Bitonio at left tackle, give me Michael Dunn at left guard, and roll the rest out. That to me is it ideal? No, but we're not in an ideal situation. I would do that. Do you have a better solution? Is that something you would look at?
Yeah, I mean, I think they really need to evaluate all their options at this point. I think that probably adding someone that either gets cut that they've liked in the past, or like you said, acquiring someone right there would make sense. But there are some, veteran free agents that they could bring in. I don't know necessarily if they want to spend money to bring in a starting caliber tackle at this point, because they are confident that at some point Wills and Conklin will be back. So, we'll just have to wait and see.
Right. It looks like Jack Conklin with that leg wrap. Like it still seems like he's a long way away, right? Like I'm the feel I'm getting, the look, like this he's still in a leg wrap. Like I don't know. I'm feeling maybe mid-season type of thing. It seems like he's a long way off.
And with his age, it's a little bit tougher. He's up there in age, not as old as a lot of people think, still in his upper 20s. But he. Oh wow. Yeah, he has been through several injuries that have caused, I mean, even just in Cleveland, right? Like he has gone through these injuries. They don't want to rush him back and then have him suffer something else like this. They want to be super, super careful. Similar thing to Nick Chubb, what they're doing with him. So just going to have to hang on and see who they can fill with that left tackle spot for week 1 and Saturday as well. Yeah.
Boy, I did not think at this point in the offseason we'd be talking this much about offensive line. But here we are. Now, Noah, for the Deshaun Watson thing, let's say, how much of a difference it makes if he plays a quarter, a couple series, or not at all. I don't know. I just think for him to get some game action is so important. We saw Josh Allen do. We saw Patrick Mahomes do. Like, do you have an angle that you feel would play out best for how they handle Deshaun Watson? I just feel, man, like if you don't play him at all, and maybe it still will make a difference, you trot him out week 1 fresh with Dallas, like that's just asking for trouble.
Yeah, I mean, if it were up to me, I would want him out there for at least a little bit. Last year, he played in the last preseason game. I think it was the entire first quarter, which I think was actually a lot of snaps. I think it was about 20 snaps that he played in the first quarter, and he got a couple of good throws in, got to loosen everything up a little bit. So I think that would be ideal. But again, it really is dependent, it seems, on this offensive line. They don't want him to get killed back there.
It makes sense.
Situation.
Yeah, it does make sense. Any other Browns news? Then I want to get your thoughts on the Steelers for our in-division look, and then we'll wrap it up there. And by the way, folks, at Browns with Noah, tremendous follow on X. Had the Pierre Strong news, up-to-date reports. Make sure you're giving him a follow there. But any other final notes on the last day of Browns training camp?
I guess just the most interesting thing I'm looking forward to is this tight end room. They have David Njoku, they have Jordan Akins as their top two guys sort of penciled in. But, after that, usually Kevin Stefanski likes a lot of tight end competition, keeps a lot of them. This year, they've got Zaire Mitchell-Payton and Trayton Welch as their two guys under the two of them. So it seems as if one of those guys is going to be making this 53-man roster. I like the way Zaire Mitchell-Payton's been playing. He's a big dude. He's always been a really good run blocker for this team. And this past offseason, he's really stressed going up, catching the ball, working on catching. And so you're seeing this pay off. He was the leading receiver last week in the preseason game at home against Minnesota. I think that he ends up making this 53-man as the third tight end, and I think can have a real impact on the field come this season. Kevin Stefanski loves 12 personnel. He loves using 3 tight ends, so we'll see if any of that is still incorporated in Ken Dorsey's new offense too. We'll have to wait and see, but that tight end group is certainly pretty interesting to know that they've only got 2 guys really fighting for one spot, which is not too normal anymore in the NFL.
6'5", 257, 25 years old, out of FAU. And you mentioned that run blocking. Maybe with this offensive line too, like this is a value spot potentially. Maybe we see him incorporate a little bit more. Very interesting. Okay. So we'll wait and see how that Saturday plays out with the Browns and in that final preseason game. Hopefully Deshaun gets some time in there, but I'm with you. You don't want him getting whacked over that. Now, let's finish off with this. Our 2024 opponent preview is with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Our arch rivals, can't stand them. Notoriously dirty playing franchise. Minka Fitzpatrick had the low head on Nick Chubb. But we look, the first time they face each other is November 21st. That is in Cleveland. And there are 3 games before that for the Steelers. They go Commanders, Ravens, then the Browns. And for Cleveland, we go off of, let's see, their games before that. We got the Saints before, Chargers, and Ravens. So they host the Steelers on the 21st. And Noah, this is a potential game where Nick Chubb could return because we have the bye, Saints, short week for the Steelers. So you'd think if you're going to bring Chubb back, you don't want him to have 2 games back-to-back. November 21st potentially could be a Nick Chubb return game. How crazy would that stadium go? First game back versus the Steelers, and Nick Chubb runs you out of the tunnel. Be phenomenal.
Yeah, I can tell you the Browns are amped for whenever that does happen. There's going to be some emotional faces in that and those teammates in the stands. Like, that is going to be a special game. But, man, the AFC North, you can never predict the game, right? Like, they're always tight. They're always close. It doesn't matter how good or how bad for the most part a team is. They're always going to be down to the wire AFC North games.
Yeah. Now, we look at the Steelers overall. We know no matter what the roster looks like, they're a well-coached team. They're probably going to go 9-8 and be very unexciting, but always be a tough out, probably miss the playoffs. But they'll get there. They'll keep their over 500 streak that they like to talk about so much. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Fascinating quarterback situation because Noah, like the Steelers, they could keep both are on the 1-year deal. So they could end up next year with one, both, or none. Like it's totally wide open to them.
Yeah, their quarterback situation is super, super interesting to look at.
Yeah.
I think from what I've heard, Fields looks pretty solid in camp. I know in the preseason, neither of them have looked good. They haven't been able to score really at all.
Yeah.
Man, we'll see. I know Russell Wilson was injured a little bit earlier on. I think he's okay now. So, yeah, I don't know who's going to win that job. I know when the new kickoff rule was announced, Justin Fields could be a guy returning. Like, who knows what's going on in Pittsburgh? But you know that their defense is going to be solid every single year. So it's going to be a tough both when they go to Cleveland and when Cleveland heads to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they are. The running backs, you got Najee Harris, pretty boring. Jalen Warren's explosive. He's a little banged up. Cordarrelle Patterson, you talked about the return game. He's older now, But that's a big body weapon. I'm interested to see how they utilize him kickoff wise, running wise, receiver. That guy's a true kind of weapon. So Cordell Patterson could be a bit of an interesting case there. We got Larry Ogunjobi, former Brown, still back there. You still got TJ Watt. Patrick Queen, I think, was the best offseason acquisition for them. You add that to that linebacker group. That's a good add.
Yeah, really solid player. Went from one AFC North team to the other. So yeah.
It'll be what's your AFC North way too early standings prediction? How do you think it's shaking out?
If I had to say now, I'd say Baltimore finishes first. Honestly, it's so hard to predict, and I'm so torn. I feel like I have a different answer every time I'm asked this. I'll go Baltimore first. I will go Cleveland tied for second and third tied, Cleveland and Cincinnati, and then Pittsburgh slightly behind them with a little bit over 500.
Yeah, it's a cannibalizing division, right? Like it's so tough. You're right. All the teams have have tough schedules this year, so it's going to be as usual a dogfight. Going to be fascinating. No, man, that was a fantastic final day of training camp update. Tell people where they can find your work, find your region, all that good stuff.
Yeah, all my Browns coverage will be on the OBR.com. You can find all my work there, and then on social media at Browns with Noah, Instagram, Twitter, or X now.
Beautiful, buddy. Well, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, there he goes. Noah Weisskopf from the OBR Orange and Brown Report. And yeah, he had reported Pierre Strong rib injury. If you're just joining us, rib injury, ambulance for precaution. Hopefully he's okay and nothing too long because they're going to be relying on him. Let's polish off with the Pittsburgh Steelers a little bit here. I want to put in a little bit of a fantasy football feel. Make sure too, folks, hey, you got your fantasy football questions? Make sure you're getting them into me at AndyMC81 at SickPodBrowns on Twitter. Use hashtag AskAndy. But before we get to the Steelers, the Steelers uniforms are terrible. They look awful. They got the pea yellow. They got the black. It looks terrible. The Browns unis are sharp. You want to look sharp with your Homage gear. Make sure you're getting your Homage gear. Specializes in ultra comfy, high quality looks, repping sports, pop culture, and more legendary moments. Learn more about Homage with the link in the description to this fine program. Now, you saw last couple weeks, I have my beautiful autogram shirt, and it is super comfy. And again, that's original. Where are you getting an autogram shirt, right? You got a whole bunch of stuff. This is another one. And I love this look here. That's the old school Browns helmet, right? Just the white stripe, 1946. Just super comfy, look sharp. That's just another example of some of the fine gear you can get at Homage for us Browns fans. And hey, if you like Buckeyes and the Tribe, the Guardians, they got a whole bunch of stuff over there. So check them out at Homage. Let's get to these squealers here. All right. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Both are better than Kenny Pickett. So technically the Steelers upgraded at quarterback. But that doesn't mean much because Kenny Pickett and his baby hands were terrible. It was the worst. So is Russell Wilson glue factory? Yeah, I think he's close. I don't think he's quite there. I think he will pop this season to a certain degree. I get the feeling, and you don't know what's in someone's heart or head, but Russell Wilson got the big contract. He's got the movie star, singer wife. It just seems like he's satisfied. It doesn't seem like Russell Wilson is hungry for winning. He's got the Super Bowl, been to 2. He's kind of done it, and he's getting the cash. I don't know. That's the vibe I get. He's not hungry. He wasn't hungry in Denver. Now, is he the type of guy who wants to reamp his legacy, come back? I don't know. We're gonna find out. Is he banged up? Justin Fields, notoriously, and I loved him in Ohio State. I wished him well, just not this year. Looks great in practice, but as soon as the defenses start throwing him complicated looks, falls apart. He just does. Chicago ruined him. Remember, Myles Garrett, I was at the game. We were in Cleveland, actually, where when Myles Garrett had that, I think it was the 5-sack game. I think it was 5 sacks. I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. But against Justin Fields, and that was a couple years ago. Okay. And you got a better culture, maybe team. Okay. The offensive line slightly improved. Who starts there? Fantasy-wise, I want nothing to do with the quarterbacks. Running back-wise, fantasy-wise, Najee Harris is your bottom-end RB2. He's in the committee. Jaylen Warren's the better back. If you could give me Jaylen Warren as the feature back with his explosiveness, I'd be much more interested. I think Jaylen Warren as a standalone could be a potential RB1, but he's banged up and he's not going to get that opportunity because Najee Harris is there. And you throw in Cordarrelle Patterson as a further guy who's going to take away reps in some capacity. So who do we look at? Really, the only two fantasy relevant options for the Steelers to me are George Pickens and especially Pat Freiermuth. So Pickens, again, it kind of goes in, and Pickens is nowhere near the quarterback of Justin Jefferson. Don't get me wrong on that. But it's the same situation where it's like, oh man, he doesn't have a great QB situation. Is that going to hamper him? Now we look, and even with the terrible quarterback play last year, he still had 1,140 yards. The touchdowns were low. So that puts me, for George Pickens, a WR2. I'm going to personally try. I think he's going to get drafted higher than he probably should. Again, not his fault. You put a good QB around George Pickens, 6'3", 200. Hell of a talent. But is it Russell Wilson? Is it Justin Fields? That's he doesn't have. He's going to demand a lot of the targets, majority of the targets, which can be good and bad because you get people's best double teams. He's had a bit of an attitude issue. You bring in Van Jefferson. That doesn't scare anybody. Calvin Austin III is an X-fly, run straight, fast guy. Okay. Quez Watkins, who cares? Des Fitzpatrick, who cares? Darnell Washington, a little slot. Now you got Roman Wilson. You do have got Roman Wilson, right? Roman Wilson's another option. But again, he's not 100%. And with this QB situation, do I want to draft him? I don't want to rely on him. I think people are going to draft Roman Wilson thinking that this guy's going to be a fantasy star year one. I don't think so. I take him as a bench guy and see, but he's going to be someone out of the slot. He's 5'10", 186. I guess you could pop him out a little bit, see if he can run. The guy I'm looking at, though, at fantasy is Pat Freiermuth. That's the one with how thin. We always know how thin the tight end group is. That's where we want to go. Now, missed 5 games last year, right? Had 12 games, down year, but he's a weapon. It was interesting because in his rookie year, in 2021, the touchdowns were at 7. The yards were low at 497, 60 catches. 2022, way up in the yards, 732, only 2 touchdowns, 63 receptions, and last year missed some time, only 2 touchdowns. So Pat Freiermuth is one of those guys where if you punt on the tight end position a bit and you wait, at least he's going to be the one, if they go to tight ends, where you're going to be able to lean on. And, if it's Russell Wilson's used his tight ends in the past. Justin Fields has been all over the place in Chicago, so who the heck knows, right? So Pat Freiermuth, other than that, man, like the Pittsburgh defense, I guess is a DST. And if you're working, if Cordarrelle Patterson, if you see something's popping a little bit on the special teams, depending on your fantasy league, this is the year too, folks. Check on your fantasy rules. Usually we just think, I'll pick the defense, special teams, whatever. With this new kickoff, check your fantasy league rules. What the kick return yards get you? What does it mean? And then that might help you with a buying decision and a draft decision of where to take somebody like Cordarrelle Patterson on the Steelers, and Nyheim Hines when healthy for the Browns, because you add in that extra bit. So just something to keep in mind when it comes to that. So that's the look at the Steelers. Again, I think they'll go 9, and I hope they go 8-9 just to snap that record. And I hope Nick Chubb comes back against him and runs for just 200 yards over that skunk Minka Fitzpatrick, his dirty hit. What a franchise that is just bred historically on being a dirty team, all the way back to the Steel Curtain, when I guess everybody was kind of dirty. But you have that. Then James Harrison, remember, almost killed poor Colt McCoy, who just retired after 14 years. Congrats to Colt. Heck of a career. I got the ticket right up here where 2010, my dad and I were down there sitting in the dog pound against the New England Patriots in November. Peyton Hillis, Colt McCoy, they beat the Pats. Were the cream of the crop at the time. So Colt McCoy, great career. But yeah, James Harrison, dirty. Then Minka Fitzpatrick with that hit. What a rat. Those filthy Steelers took out Nick Chubb. Well, hopefully this is a year where they get their come up and go under 500. Give me a nice 8-9 and the Browns sweep them. You got to win in Pittsburgh. This is a series here. When they start playing the Steelers, because remember we looked at, we had Let me get to the Browns schedule away from them. Okay. Chargers, bye week, at the Saints, home to the Steelers, in Denver. Bo Nix was announced the starter today. Well, I think the Broncos are going to stink, but the Browns can't win in Denver. So, you can't count on that. Then after Denver, you travel to Pittsburgh again. And then you're home to the Chiefs and at Cincinnati. This is the murderer's row. That's why a slow start to the season can't happen. I don't care who the offensive line is for the Browns. Can't happen. Can't do it. Because look at that. Look at the games I just listed off. Steelers, at Denver, Steelers, Chiefs, Bengals, Dolphins, Ravens. That's 7 games. That is a tough slog. So you have to figure out, I don't care how it looks, just that first chunk of games where we get up pretty much to the Eagles, right? Because we got Cowboys who are in flux, Jags, Giants, Raiders, Commanders, Eagles. So we got to come out of that Eagles game and Bengals at home. That's the first 7. I'd be really liking to see a nice 5-2 record coming out of that. And then you kind of hold on and see what happens the rest of the way. So I don't know. But that's a lot of Browns updates when it comes to the offensive line. What's it going to look like? Let me know, comment section. What do you want to see out of this preseason finale? What's your nervous level, concern level? I mentioned Jerry Jeudy the other week. He's off the radar now. What about this offensive line? What would you do? What would you do with this offensive line? For me, if Jed Wills isn't available, Batonio left guard, slide in Michael Dunn, you're set. I think that's a good option. That's as good an option as you're going to get. Right, rather that than I know James Hudson isn't, but even if he was healthy, James Hudson's terrible. So that would be what I would do. What would you do? Give us a follow on Twitter, on X, at SickPodBrowns, at AndyMC81, Instagram and TikTok, at AndyMCSports. Click notifications and subscriptions on. Last preseason game. Training camp is over. We are almost at the start of the season. We'll be having a lot of fantasy football talk, too, coming over the last couple of weeks. So get those questions in using hashtag AskAndy. Thanks to Noah Weisskopf from the Orange and Brown Report. Producer Jimmy, I'm Andy. You've been watching the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara. And as always, go Browns.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.